Hello and welcome to the Centre for Computing History. We're doing another one of our little zip vids, and today we're looking at the Sord M5. So Sord as a company started in 1970, founded by a man called Takashi Shina, and at first they just wrote software for DEC machines before starting to produce hardware in 1974. So they produced various machines for business and in the home, and by 1982 they were ready to take on the games market with this little machine here. So the company name Sord is apparently a very large contraction of the two words software and hardware. So that's taking the SO from software and the RD from hardware. So the machine was set to release at the tail end of 1982, but it was going to launch already into a very crowded market. So we had the home machines, we had the Sinclairs, the Acorns, Dragon 32 was on the market. As well as that, there was the American companies, so Commodore, Atari and Texas Instruments, all having their own different rates of success. And later on in the year, they'd be joined by Oric and to a much less degree by Computers with their links. So it was going to be a pretty crowded market. The machine itself is aimed squarely at the games market. So it has the Zilog Z80 processor, running at 3.58 megahertz. It's set up really for sprites as well, so it could have 32 sprites on screen at once. That put it up there level with the Commodore 64 and the machines such as that. Okay, so on the back of the machine here we have an RF video socket. We have sound and composite video. We have two controller ports, printer port, the DIN for the cassette and the power socket. The machine did not have BASIC built onto a ROM chip. Instead, you lift up this flap here and then you were supplied with a BASIC integer cart. And turn the machine on and there is the BASIC ready to go. The British companies were very protective of the home computer market. It was widely expected that the Japanese were going to come in at some point and pretty much destroy the home micro market as they had the home video. They were not only competing with themselves for price, but they're also very mindful of what was coming in from abroad. Now, if the machine had launched when it should have done, which was November 1982, it might have stood more of a chance than it eventually did. In February 1983, it was still a no-show, and it was also announced at this time that the price was going to rise from £149 to 169. This was a large problem. There were already well-established machines on the market that cost an awful lot less. Around April 83, they signed a deal with CGL, an Essex company standing for Computer Graphics Limited, who were going to handle the distribution of the machine in the UK. Takashi Shina came over himself. He was that concerned that the machine was so far behind that he wanted to get in the minds of the press that it was arriving, and it eventually did arrive a month later in May 83. The press at the time received it very favourably. They saw it as a very nicely put together machine. The keyboard for a chiclet type was very, very good indeed, but then Sord had downplayed the technical side of the machine, and the press soon picked up that it only had 20k of RAM. 16k of which was for the video system. So for programs, it only had 4k spare. Very quickly, Sord announced that they were going to have it so you could upgrade it yourself quite easily to 16k. But this is in a time when machines are now starting to use 48k, 64k. So with other established machines on the market having far more RAM to play with, it was really too little too late. And also cost an awful lot more when it finally did arrive. It actually cost £189. At around the time of the machine's launch as well, Sord did promise two new machines. They promised the M2, which is an even more cut down version of the machine, and then the M5 Turbo, which would have had 64k of RAM. In late 1983 though, there were only CGL branded Sords available. Sord were now fighting a battle on two fronts, not only the European and the American machines, but on their home territory of Japan, they had now come up against the bigger companies, likes of Sony, Mitsubishi, Canon, Pioneer, had all signed up to the MSX standard, and those machines had come to market and were squarely aimed at where Sord wanted to be. So in 1983, Sheena was approached by a still unnamed Japanese company to buy Sord. He refused, and at that point he started to have difficulty getting parts for his machines. And in interviews he has actually said that he thinks he was the victim of a smear campaign. So the basic cartridge supplied with the machine was really seen by the critics as not being terribly good. If you wanted to do more graphics-based programs, you needed to buy the basic G cart, which was £35. Or if you wanted to do more complicated maths, then you had the basic F cartridge that added floating point arithmetic. So with all the competition from the American and British machines in Europe, and now the MSX standard in Japan, Sord really started shifting emphasis to the portable market, where they'd already had some considerable success. That meant that they produced no more of the micro machines, so the M5 Turbo and the M2 were never released, and they left the home market. And the M5 was left purely in CGL's hand, who were later bought out by Amstrad. Sord themselves were sold to Toshiba in 1985. Takeyoshi Sheena stayed on at Toshiba for 2 more years before leaving the industry. So we'll have a look at a couple of the Sord's games. We've got the Sord data recorder DR5. Very, very little tape software was produced. First one I'm going to try is Step Up. Okay. Now let's see exactly what sort of game we're going to get with only 4 kilobytes. Oh, cool, there's a lot going on. Wow. Well, I think I had temporary immunity there. It looks like we just keep... Oh, hello, so I'm going to reach the top. Oh, so near. Oh, well, that's fun. So you get all the way to the top and then dropped all the way to the bottom. Thank you very much. Oh, it does actually help if I've got my finger on the right key. Oh, my goodness me. This needs to be played with someone far better dexterity than I have. Oh, my word. Oh, that was Step Up, people. Absolutely fantastic that was. Okay, let's try another one that I might actually be slightly better at. And we're going to go for Dragon Attack. This is the one I believe we usually have out on the museum floor, so... Okay, so, oh, right. Also, there we go. Oh, so we shoot the dragons and then they split into... Ah, right, hit them in the head. That's what we need to do. So apparently it has the same sound chip as a TI-99 4A and a BBC Micro. And a little 4K program, it's not that bad. Of course it is backed up quite heftily in the video department. Oh. Gotcha. Oh. Nice. Now just more of the same, I think. A little bit more vicious. It's a bit of a turn on the older Space Invaders. Now, there was supposed to have been something like 60 cartridges released for the M5. but we've only ever come across about 16 images of certainly game software for it, so there was not an awful lot. And the machine now, I think we could basically say, was just one of the very many machines that appeared around 1983, where it seemed that every other week a new micro got launched in the country somewhere. Oh, I'm doing so much better. Here we go. The keyboard is actually very nice to play on as well. It's not bad at all, very responsive for a chiclet type keyboard. Am I going to clear this screen? Okay, that was quite a fun little game. Direct cross between Space Invaders and Centipede. Okay, so there we are. I think we can leave that one there. Okay, so that was a little look at the Sord M5 there. Nice little curio from Japan. And I hope you enjoyed it. Keep looking at our social media, and if you like our videos, sign up to our Patreon. If you have any machines that you think we should have in our collection, then please do contact us. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.